Well, hello there. My name is HW, and thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. This is a story of the Overdrive Deluxe, and the Overdrive Deluxe camera profile pack is coming out, the day after I put this video out. And I kind of do these videos sometimes just because I think it's a good idea for me to chronicle some of and tell the story behind where some of these amps come from. Some of them are obvious, like you buy an AC30, there's an AC30, but some of them, it's like, what amp is this? What are you doing, HW? So you might be thinking, another Dumble. HW, you've been doing a lot of Dumbles lately, and I have been doing a lot of Dumbles, and I want to keep doing a lot of Dumbles because I'm really falling kind of into this Dumble world vortex where it's kind of like fine wine. You know, the more Dumble amps I play, especially the more amps I play that are designed after specific Dumbles or clones of specific circuits, the more it becomes like this fine wine thing where you appreciate the differences. You know, Napa Valley can sometimes have these notes of, this aromatic bell sprout sort of rooty vegetable take, where something maybe from Chile does not have that sort of musk to the wine itself, and you might get a little more clean fruit elements. HW, what are you, sommelier now? I like to think of myself as a sommelier of tone. HW, the sommelier of profiles. Let's talk about this Overdrive Deluxe. The more stuff I read about the Dumbles, the more I realize that of the 300 or so amps that Howard made, there's probably more. The majority of those amps are, it would be accurate to say, it's like, this is a Skyliner, but it has this and this. And this is a transitional model before the HRM. So it's kind of like the HRM, but it has this. And this is a full-on HRM, but the input is this way. It seems like there's more models that sort of, in some small ways, break from the sort of, models that we think of. There's more actual serial numbered amps that break away from the models than there are that actually fit neatly into these little Dumble boxes. And I think a lot of people know that, but you start to appreciate it when you start to try different serial numbers and stuff. And there's some famous ones out there. You know, that 183 has been cloned by several people. It's known as a transitional Dumble. It's the EL34 Dumble. Maybe there was the only EL34 one made. I'm not quite sure. But this amp we profiled is a clone of a Dumble that is not far from me, actually. There's a Dumble sitting at Carter's right now. And well, before I get into that, let me tell you what it does and why I like it. This thing is unique because, first of all, it really is thick sounding in a way that I haven't found many other amps to be. It's hard to describe it, so I just want you to hear it. So just listen to Suze play this on a Strat. It's thick, and this is its signature kind of sound. You hear that thick, syrupy, almost to the edge of like oversaturated. Is it getting grumbly, lo-fi? But that sort of sound, that really reminds me of sitting down with this amp, because that sound you're hearing is unique to this one. It's the sound of two gain stages with independent controls. and you're asking the player to dial them in. So it's not an overdrive special. It's not the traditional turn on the it is the traditional Dumble thing in that we have a clean channel and then we turn on a drive channel, and the drive channel goes before it and cascades into the clean, so you have these shared controls on both channels. It is that, but what you get are separate gain knobs rather than just a lead gain and a contour. It's just built sort of differently. And this amp even came with a note on it. It said it can be challenging to dial in and get these gains just right. But here's gain 1 and gain 2. And the way the amp was set up, there were 2 inputs. There was one input that went right into the clean channel, so you always had this gain active. But when you went to the second input, you now had another gain stage cascaded in front of it. And you had to be careful because that sound is the sound of that second gain stage getting hammered by the first one. And there is too much in there. It's the type of thing where you can't just set them wherever you want and get unique tones. It really became obvious to me that the usability of this thing was, okay, let's leave the first gain stage off, and maybe we have, you know, clean, a little overdriven, and pretty driven, and then, you know, really gained out, and then full tilt, you know. And then after that, it's like, how do you dial in more? Well, we'll set that first stage lightly to 2, and now your slightly driven sound, that 3 position is just, it's different. It's now saturated more, and that upright position is really going, and now the full on becomes almost like a fuzzy kind of thing, and that's really the sound of this lead channel. It's that extra thick, syrupy Dumble thing. It's not like what it had in the 183. The 183 has a little more of a 34 Marshall-esque quality with maybe a little more upper mids, but it still very much sounds like a Dumble. It doesn't sound like a Marshall. But this Overdrive Deluxe, interesting amp. So about the actual amp itself, I got this amp from the gentleman at Sebago Sounds who built it. And if you're wondering how this all ties in together, so I have previously bought that Steel String Singer, and that Steel String Singer was also made by the guy at Sebago Sound, but it was owned by somebody who used to own a real Dumble. And that guy who owned that real Dumble, he wanted him and Sebago Sound kind of got together, and they were making these Overdrive Deluxe clones. And I think you could still buy them on overdrivedeluxe.com or something. And there's a YouTube video from early YouTube days with a bunch of hits. That was like one of the first Dumbles sort of recorded on YouTube with like a camcorder. It's just camera audio. It sounds good, but you know, it's just camera audio. And they sold kind of replicas of this Dumble. And the reason this Dumble was unique, it's actually at Carter's right now, and I've seen it. I haven't played it. There's a video online of Hunter Hayes playing it. And it's called the Overdrive Deluxe. It's kind of a unique amp, and it's the only like 25 or 24 watt Dumble. You know, all the ODSs at first were 50 watts, and I think there's some 100-watt versions, for sure there are, and then of course the Steel String Singer could go 150, or you could pare it down to, does it go to 75 watts or 100? I can't remember, but anyway, the Steel String Singer, or maybe 150 watts. Just meant to be big and loud and clean, but that amp currently lives. So the Deluxe, the Overdrive Deluxe that we're talking about, it's built into a, you know, Fender Deluxe, you know, little combo. It's Silverface Deluxe that Howard built a Dumble in. And that amp might have an interesting history. We're really not sure. We're really not sure who touched it over the years and stuff. But anyway, it belonged to this gentleman, and they kind of made some clones of it, and they sold them. Not to trick anyone, but just to offer it out there. And I don't know if they planned to sell the Steel String Singer, but he wanted the Steel String Singer made. They made one. He later offloaded it, and I bought it, and I was really happy to buy it. And I love that amp. I was poking around Reverb, and I had bought a couple things from the gentleman at Sebago Sound, and I bought a cab, and I bought a couple amps and stuff, and this amp was up there, And this amp was a clone of that Dumble that's sitting in Carter's. But instead of it being in the 25 watt package in a 112, he had put it in the very popular, for the Dumble crowd, the very popular dual Showman TFL 5005D. And those were used in, so there are Dumbles made of that amp, and those were often used as donor heads. You'll see some Canard amps and some maybe two-rock kind of things where those amps are often converted to ODSs and stuff. Basically what you do is you keep the transformer, you keep the power section of the tubes, and then you rip everything else out, and then you build your amp on top of that, because the early Dumbles, the ODSs, so the story goes that Howard saw Robin Ford play and thought, I'm going to build this guy an amp. And we think for that amp, he built it in a Dumble chassis, but he maybe took the tube, the power section and the transformer from a Fender Bassman. And so that was sort of his thing. Maybe Robin was playing a Bassman, I don't know, but he thought, well, let me build an amp around this. So he took some pieces of an amp that he had. Maybe it was a donor amp, maybe he just had those parts around the shop, but it looks like the power section of the early ODSs is, you know, pretty much based on the power section of that Bassman. Now the front end's completely different. It's a different animal, but this amp, the original one, the Dumble that's sitting in Carter's, is made after it's this Overdrive Deluxe, and it's made, you know, with a little Silverface Deluxe. And so a lot of people take these dual Showmans because, one, they're plentiful, they're not that expensive, and two, it's like it's a 100-watt version. You know, it's like having a big 100-watt sort of twin, you know, transformer and power section. You know, you get 4 6L6s, and it's big and nice and headroomy, and there you go. But the tone of this thing is really sort of, it's that warmer. It's warmer. Even on the bright switch one, it's warmer. I'm going to play one more clip here so you can just kind of hear how warm it is. And the cleans just have a real, I don't know, there's a fat thing, those two tubes into each other. It's just the tone of this amp. Listen to this one more clip. And that is sort of that's how I hear the cleans of this amp in my head. But then it also does this very rocky thing, which reminds me a little of the HRM, the Hot Rod and Marshall kind of thing. And it kind of can do that classic rock thing, but it's not wide open like a Plexi. It's not the upper mid-range like a Plexi. It's dirty, and there's a compressy rock sort of sound. Check this out. It's funny to me that we even say like, you know, does it sound like a Dumble, or what's the Dumble sound? And that's a weird thing to say if you think about it, because it's kind of like saying like, does it sound like a Fender? Does it sound like a Marshall? Well, I mean, a JTM 45 sounds pretty different than a JCM 800, right? Like those are pretty different amps. And a Plexi sounds different than a JVM or I don't know, what's like a Marshall combo. You know what I'm saying? An artist 50 from the 70s. These amps are all different, you know? And so like Dumble's a manufacturer, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is this Overdrive Deluxe thing to me is a different flavor, and it's funny, we were doing the demo and the Suze was like, this is a really good sounding amp. And I was like, I know, man, there's a quality about it that I haven't really run into in even the other Dumbles. Like it sounds like a Dumble, but there's a quality about it that's unique. And you know what other amp that kind of reminds me of, the Overdrive Deluxe does not sound anything like this amp I'm about to say. But it reminds me of the Silver Jubilee a little in the Marshall line. Completely unique to itself. It has the upper mids of a Marshall, but it doesn't sound like a Plexi, or it sounds maybe closest to an 800 maybe, but you know, it's kind of its own racehorse, you know? And that's sort of how I see this Overdrive Deluxe. Now, maybe there's some other ones out there. I'm pretty interested to get my hands on like a real Dumble here pretty shortly. And I'm looking at a couple ones. Realistically, guys, you know, am I going to be able to afford, you know, right now on Reverb, there's a $127,000 Dumble. I can't afford that. I can't, you know what I'm saying? But is it possible that I'm going to be able to get a Santa Cruz era, you know, Dumble? That could happen. Is it possible that I'll be able to get like a real Ultraphonics? You know, those go for a pretty penny, but could happen. Could happen. That's a little more something that you know, it's in the back of my head that I'm trying to be ready when a Dumble comes around. So a lot of times I'm getting some amps, but I'm trying to offload them quickly because you never know when the right thing is going to come around. So will I get a real one? Yeah, the hope is that a good specimen comes along that's like a Santa Cruz era Dumble or like an Ultraphonics, and we'll start there. And hopefully maybe later I can get my hands on a real, just like an early ODS. I'd love to, but you know, until then, I like the idea of being able to catalog some of the clones that are out there, especially the clones that I know are high quality and clones of actual Dumble amps. So the Steel String Singer was circuit traced at Full Moon Music, you know, and then built by Sebago Sound, and it's a clone of number 2. It's a clone of SSS number 2, John's Steel String Singer, John Mayer's amp that he has right now. You know, I had tracked down. I wasn't telling this story, but I did track down one of the Dumbles that's on Continuum. There's 2 ODSs that's on Continuum, and one of them is owned by somebody else now. And I did track that down, but it doesn't. That's gone cold. I'm not going to be able to. I'm no closer to being able to profile that amp than you know, not knowing you know, anybody surrounding it at all. So that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, the 183, you know, that's known as a transitional Dumble that is EL34, and it's famous, and it's been cloned by several people, and that circuit's out there, because that's a really unique one. And so that 183 that I got, the Overtone Special 183, it's you know, I called the Overdrive, the ODS 183 pack. You know, I love that. I love being able to play one of these Dumbles that's different than this other Dumble. And now here's really a third one that's really a direct clone. And I really want to get a couple more that are direct clones. I've done some other Dumble amps in the past, but they haven't necessarily been direct clones. They've more been inspired by the Dumble circuit. And so they might be borrowing from multiple circuits. They might be borrowing even from someone else's borrow, right? Two Rock's a good example of that. You know, they're making models that at this point are Two Rock amps. They're not even based off Dumbles anymore, but you definitely look at the amp and you go, I see that there's some Dumble topography here. Some of the switches and stuff are even in the vein of a Dumble, but it's because, you know, they made some clones, and Bill Kennard made a bunch of clones and stuff, but at some point they've changed the model so much that is a classic reverb signature a Dumble? No, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like a cross between a super reverb and a Dumble. And you know, maybe they have something like the TS1, you know. Is that a clone of a Dumble? I think it's like a clone of a Dumble, but it's really like a clone of what you think a Dumble is, right? So it's like a clone of an ODS, but is it a clone of a particular ODS? I don't really think so. I think it's probably trying to be close to the earlier ones. But you know what I'm saying? So I got my hands on another little combo. I'm not going to tell you about it right now, but it's another clone of an actual Dumble that exists. But this one's a modified amp, an amp that was modified by Dumble, and then someone looked at the circuit, made their own. And I don't know, it just really fascinates me. But what really fascinates me too is just, I wish I knew more about the circuit so I could really understand what makes this Overdrive Deluxe kind of do its thing. There's just a real tubular, nice quality to it. And I don't know what else to say about it. There's going to be some free profiles out, and you can try them. As always, get on the email list if you're not. But hey, this is what the Overdrive Deluxe is, and I'll let the Suze play us out with a clip. But yeah, it's just an amp made by some people who are really obsessed with Dumbles. They make some clones. And I got my hands on a 100-watt version of what is a 25-watt Dumble. So is it a clone of a real Dumble? It is, but the power section's been scaled up a bit. And you know, I sort of got it and was like, oh, okay, that'll be cool. Maybe it'll sound good. And it's like, whoa, this is a musical machine. This is something that is different, that's inspiring. This is the Bellsprout flavor. You know, this is like, oh, in this vintage, you can taste that there was extra rain, or that, you know, like all these, it is a total tangent, but, you know, all these California fires right now, you know, that affects the taste of the wine. And the extra rainfall from a couple years ago affected the taste of the wine. It settles in the ground, and it changes the shape of the grape. It changes how many grapes there are, but then it also changes, you know, it changes the groundwater. It changes the soot goes down. It changes the, sommeliers will tell you, it changes the flavor. All that stuff you can taste in the wine. And I feel like that's true. That's true of these circuits. You can taste the difference. The 183 and the Overdrive Deluxe and the TS1, and you can. It's the steel string singer. It can be on the tongue. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm wacky, and it's late at night. My name's been HW. Suze, play us out, and check out these Overdrive Deluxe Kemper profile pack. Free ones that are going to be out soon. Just look out for them in the emails. My name's been HW. Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. HW, out.